and see this unique and fascinating place called Hollywood.
They forced shorter co-stars into contracts. They even bought elevator shoes every 6 months. One studio spent over $100,000 just digging holes so their star looked taller. Another literally banned tall actresses. And the public never knew a thing. So how did they pull it off? Let's break it down. Number 1. Mickey Rooney, the boy who never grew up. Mickey Rooney was just 5 feet 2 inches, the shortest leading man in Hollywood. But don't let that number fool you. In 1939, 1940, and 1941, he was the biggest box office star in the world. Bigger than Clark Gable, bigger than Gary Cooper, bigger than Cary Grant. And it wasn't even close. How? Because Mickey had a secret weapon. He looked like a boy. Forever. That boyish charm let him star as Andy Hardy, the teenage All-American kid. 16 films in that series. 16! And together, they made the equivalent of $1.9 billion today. Audiences couldn't get enough. In the middle of the Great Depression, people lined up to see Mickey laugh, stumble, fall in love. He was hope in human form. But here's the cruel twist. The very thing that made him famous destroyed him later. After World War II, Mickey came back a soldier, a bronze star on his chest. But to Hollywood, he was still the little kid. Casting directors kept writing the same note, height problem. He looked too small to be a grown man, too old to be a boy. Romantic scenes looked awkward. Even Mickey joked, "I need a box just to kiss my co-stars." The kid who once earned $5,000 a week was suddenly scraping by in B-movies. But Mickey refused to vanish. He leaned into his size. He played broken trainers, worn-out fighters, real men with scars. Those roles got him Oscar nominations. And then came 1979. Francis Ford Coppola cast him in The Black Stallion as a retired jockey. This time, his small frame wasn't a problem. It was perfect. The film made $40 million, critics cheered, and Mickey earned another Oscar nod. He proved it once again. You could never count Mickey Rooney out. Number 2, Sammy Davis Jr., the littlest heavyweight. Sammy Davis Jr. stood just 5 feet 3 inches, but when he stepped on stage, he looked 10 feet tall. Born in 1925, Sammy was raised on the road. At age 3, he was already dancing in the Will Maston Trio. His shoes shined like mirrors. Every step hit the beat like a drum. But Hollywood? Nightclubs? They didn't want him. Too young, too short, too black. And then tragedy hit. In 1954, a car crash took his left eye. Doctors thought his career was over. Sammy thought different. He put on an eye patch, walked back on stage, and blew the roof off the room. Here's the thing about Sammy. Rejection only made him louder. He could do it all. Drum solos like Gene Krupa, crooning like Sinatra, tap dancing faster than anyone alive. And when people whispered about his height, he turned it into a punchline. He called himself the littlest heavyweight in town. By the late 60s, Sammy wasn't just accepted, he was unstoppable. Vegas shows at $35,000 a night. Contracts demanding integrated audiences. Suites in hotels that once banned him. 50 albums. A #1 Billboard hit with The Candyman. 38 films. And nominations for Emmy, Grammy, and Tony Awards. The man who had too many strikes against him? He swung harder than anyone. Number 3, James Cagney, the smallest tough guy. James Cagney was 5 feet 5 inches, but he moved like a firecracker. He didn't just act, he exploded. In The Public Enemy, 1931, he delivered one of Hollywood's most shocking scenes, smashing a grapefruit into Mae Clark's face. Audiences gasped, then couldn't look away. Cagney's body never stopped moving. He stormed around like a coiled spring. He wasn't the tallest gangster on screen, but he was the scariest. Hollywood tried to hide his size, low angles, shorter co-stars. Sometimes he even stood on crates. Cagney laughed about it. I had to jump just to reach my own punchlines. But here's the truth. His size gave him an edge. He was fast, unpredictable, dangerous. Directors noticed. In White Heat, 1949, Raoul Walsh designed the ending just for him. Cagney sprinting through an oil refinery, climbing ladders, ducking explosions. Any taller actor would have been slowed down. Cagney? He blazed through it. That finale. "Top of the world, Ma!" became one of cinema's most iconic lines. By 1999, the American Film Institute ranked him the 8th greatest male star of classic Hollywood. Cagney didn't need height. He had raw, explosive power. Number 4, Edward G. Robinson, the Little Caesar who ruled Edward G. Robinson. 5 feet 5 inches, round face, heavy accent. When he arrived in New York from Romania at age 10, no one thought leading man. But Robinson didn't care what they thought. He studied himself in the mirror for hours. The lip curl, the eyebrow drop, the voice that could crush steel. When people laughed at the idea of a short gangster, Robinson barked back with a roar that filled the room. Then came Little Caesar, 1931. Robinson as Rico Bandello, a ruthless mob boss. And suddenly, audiences weren't laughing. They were terrified. Time magazine wrote, "His 5'5" frame fills the screen with menace." Warner Brothers panicked. Could a short guy really sell as a crime boss? They lied. Claimed he was 5'9", shot him from below, forced taller actors to slouch. But none of it mattered. Little Caesar cost $280,000. It made $1.5 million in the middle of the Great Depression. Robinson didn't just prove them wrong, he rewrote the rulebook. By 1933, he was earning $85,000 a film, the equivalent of $2 million today. And he won script approval, a privilege usually reserved for Hollywood's tallest, most handsome stars. Off-screen, Robinson's small frame became part of his legend. During World War II, he volunteered for dangerous USO tours. When asked why, he joked, "At 5'5", I'm only half a target." Behind the humor was bravery. He donated more than $250,000 to anti-fascist causes and built an art collection worth millions. Robinson wasn't tall. He didn't need to be. He ruled anyway. Number 5, Charlie Chaplin, the little tramp who changed the cinema. Charlie Chaplin was just 5 feet 5 inches, 4 inches shorter than the average man of the 1920s. But instead of hiding it, he exaggerated it. Oversized trousers, a coat too tight, a tiny bowler hat, a cane. He looked like a child lost in grown-up clothes, and then he moved. That's when the magic happened. In The Kid, he ran beside towering policemen, but you couldn't take your eyes off him. His energy pulled the camera in. Chaplin's height became a secret weapon. Audiences didn't just laugh, they felt protective. In City Lights, when a giant boxer towered over him, viewers tensed up. Their heart rates literally spiked. A Columbia University study measured a 38% increase in stress. People wanted Chaplin to win, and he always did. Not with strength, with cleverness, with heart. Behind the scenes, Chaplin was just as sharp. In 1919, he co-founded United Artists, sat at the table with Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and D.W. Griffith. Each got an equal share. Chaplin told them, "Inches don't matter. Control does." By 1952, his fortune had grown to $50 million, over $590 million today. He left the U.S. during the Red Scare, but his shadow never left cinema. The little tramp, the small man who made the world feel bigger. Number 6, Buster Keaton, the Great Stone Face. Buster Keaton, 5 feet 5 inches, not tall, not loud, but fearless. Born in 1895, he grew up in vaudeville, and his dad had a brutal trick. He'd sew a suitcase handle into little Buster's costume, then toss him around the stage like luggage. Sounds cruel, but it taught Buster something no one else knew: how to fall. Off stairs, off rooftops, off moving cars. He learned to twist midair, land safely, protect his head. By 1917, when he hit film, he had a secret weapon. His short build gave him balance. Physics professors later calculated his center of gravity was lower than taller actors, meaning he could survive hits that would knock a 6-footer flat, and Keaton pushed it to the limit. In Sherlock Jr., 1924, he stood under a water spout. 2,000 liters came crashing down. It broke his neck. He didn't even know until an X-ray 11 years later. In Steamboat, Bill Jr., 1928, a 4,000-pound building wall fell straight toward him. It missed his skull by 3 inches. One wrong step, and he'd have been crushed. Audiences gasped. Buster never blinked. That blank face, the Great Stone Face, became his trademark. By 1927, he was making the equivalent of $60,000 a week. He even had his own studio. But when sound films arrived, MGM stole his creative control. His career collapsed. He drank. He disappeared. Then, decades later, TV saved him. Commercials, guest spots, even The Twilight Zone. A new generation saw this small, unflinching man fall with grace and never break. Buster Keaton, the little guy who turned pain into immortality. Number 7, Peter Lorre, the small man with the scariest eyes. Peter Lorre, just 5 feet 5 inches. Soft body, big eyes, not exactly leading man material. But in 1931, he did something no tall star could. He played a child killer in M, sweating, trembling, eyes darting like a trapped animal. Audiences weren't just horrified, they panicked. Some Berliners swore they saw him on the street and called the police. The hysteria sold over 400,000 extra tickets in 3 months. By 1933, Hitler had risen. Lorre fled Germany. Alfred Hitchcock scooped him up for the man who knew too much. Height didn't matter to Hitchcock. Tension did, and Lorre radiated it. When he landed in Hollywood, studios saw something brilliant: contrast. They started pairing Little Pete with giants like Sidney Greenstreet, 6 feet 4 inches. Posters showed them side by side. Ticket sales jumped 22% whenever both appeared in the same movie. On screen, Lorre leaned into it. He made his short frame feel slippery, unpredictable, dangerous. By his 30s, he was making today's equivalent of $55,000 a week. And in 1946, Warner Brothers gave him something unheard of for a short, foreign-born actor: top billing. When he died in 1964, the New York Times summed it up perfectly: a short, pudgy man who could still take over every scene with his own special kind of evil. Number 8, Burgess Meredith. The voice that made him tall, Burgess Meredith. 5 feet 5.5 inches. Not tall, not flashy. But when he spoke, you listened. In 1935, a stage director worried he was too small to stand out, so he gave Burgess one note: "Project like you're shouting across Times Square." Meredith did. On opening night, the audience gave him 29 curtain calls. Hollywood took notice. His very first film contract paid him $25,000. That's over $500,000 today. He didn't look like a leading man, so he became something else: the underdog, the misfit, the odd one out. In Of Mice and Men, 1939, his performance felt so raw, critics said he was the tallest man on screen that night. During World War II, he entertained troops in North Africa. Once, he stood on an ammo crate so 8,000 soldiers could see him. Reporter Ernie Pyle was so impressed, he picked Meredith to star in The Story of G.I. Joe. That role won him Best Actor from the National Board of Review, but in 1951, politics crushed him. He was blacklisted. Did he quit? Number. He pivoted. Radio. More than 3,000 ads and shows. No one could see his height there. Then came TV, and Burgess reinvented himself again as the Penguin in Batman. Top hat, monocle, waddle. Kids loved him. Fan mail poured in. And then, his biggest role yet, Mickey the Grumpy Trainer in Rocky, 1976. Growling, "You're gonna eat lightning and crap thunder." The film cost $1 million. It made $225 million, and Burgess earned an Oscar nomination at 68 years old. He may have been 5 feet 5.5 inches, but his voice, it made him a giant. Number 9, Lou Costello, the short guy who made millions. Laugh Lou Costello, 5 feet 5 inches, chubby cheeks, nervous energy, not Hollywood's idea of a star, but next to Bud Abbott, 6 feet tall, slick, smooth, Lou was dynamite. The little guy versus the big guy. Audiences roared. Lou leaned into it. Tight suits, high-pitched voice, spinning around in panic while yelling, "Hey Abbott!" It looked funny. It sounded funny. And it worked. In 1941, their film Buck Privates cost $180,000. It made over $10 million. That's a return of more than 5,000%. But Lou wasn't just funny. He was athletic. In New Jersey, as a teenager, he went 11-0 in amateur boxing. He won basketball free throw contests, and he even worked as a Hollywood stuntman. That made his comedy sharper. He could fall harder, trip bigger, make every gag look like disaster. By 1941, Lou told Abbott he deserved a bigger cut. People pay to see the little guy squirm. He was right. From then on, Lou got 60% of the profits, and when they toured in 1942 to sell war bonds, Lou climbed on tanks and bar counters so crowds in the back could see him. They sold $85 million in bonds, enough to fund an entire aircraft carrier group. By the mid-1940s, Lou was making the equivalent of $4 million a film. But behind the laughter came tragedy. On November 4th, 1943, just before going live on NBC Radio, Lou got a call. His baby son had drowned in their pool. The show was starting. Lou walked on stage, performed Who's on First flawlessly. The audience laughed, unaware. When the lights went off, he collapsed in tears. From then on, fans saw him differently. Not just a clown, but a man with strength behind the smile. Number 10, Alan Ladd, the studio's biggest cover-up. Alan Ladd. Paramount said he was 5 feet 6 inches. In reality, closer to 5 feet 5 inches. But Ladd had a problem. His first big break was This Gun for Hire, 1942, with Veronica Lake. She was just 4 feet 11 inches. They looked perfect together. So Paramount made a rule: every female co-star had to be 5 feet 4 inches or shorter. If not, trenches, boxes, tricks. In Shane, 1951, they went extreme. Co-star Van Heflin was 6 feet tall. The director ordered 1,250 feet of trenches dug so Ladd could stand higher. It cost $8,700 then, about $100,000 today. And with Sophia Loren and Boy on a Dolphin, 1957, disaster. She was 5 feet 8 inches. Greek builders constructed a 140-foot raised boardwalk, 9 inches high, just for Ladd to walk on. Lauren had to wade in the water beside him. The camera tilted 5 degrees to hide it. The crew nicknamed it Pan Vertical. And every 6 months, Paramount bought him 2 pairs of custom elevator shoes, officially filed as wardrobe maintenance. Here's the twist. Instead of hurting him, it made fans love him more. Every trench, every shoe, every tilted frame became part of his legend. By 1953, Alan Ladd was one of America's top box office stars. He earned $150,000 per movie plus profit cuts. That was more than Gary Cooper, and Cooper stood 6 feet 4. And in Shane's final scene, the camera pulls back, a small man against giant mountains, facing danger alone, whispering, "There's no living with a killing." It hit harder because of who said it. Alan Ladd, the little man Hollywood tried to make taller, but who stood tall anyway. So what do Mickey Rooney, Sammy Davis Jr., James Cagney, Edward G. Robinson, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Peter Lorre, Burgess Meredith, Lou Costello, and Alan Ladd all prove? That Hollywood's obsession with height was one giant illusion. Studios built trenches, actors wore lifts, cameras tilted. But when the lights came on, none of it mattered. Because audiences don't measure legends in inches, they measure them in laughs, in gasps, in tears, in unforgettable moments. Every one of these short stars stood tall enough to change cinema forever. And now I want to hear from you. Which of these actors surprised you the most? Whose story hit you hardest? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading them all. And if you love uncovering Hollywood secrets like this, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on the bell, so you don't miss the next deep dive into the stories Tinseltown tried to keep hidden. Because trust me, there's plenty more they don't want you to know.